Hey, what's up, guys? If you don't know me, my name is Mark Flood. I am one of the co-founders of Disrupt Gaming, and I know that most everyone is at home now during these unprecedented times. So I just wanted to create this video, and hopefully it's helpful. It's really just a background on esports, a little bit about the history of it, and where it was, where it is today, and kind of where it's going. Hopefully this helps with kind of understanding of it all. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. So with that being said, we'll just kind of jump into it here. But starting with what are esports, look, a lot of people get a little persnickety, if you will, about the actual definition. Don't get too hung up on it. Really, if there's competition and there's money and it's taking place in a known video game, it's probably esports. You know, some people say that the fighting games like Street Fighter and Tekken are not esports, that those are separate. But again, don't get too hung up on it. Basically, if people are competing, there's real money on the line, it's in a video game, it's probably esports. You know, again, you can kind of dive down into more particular definitions, but that's generally the gist of it. How did all this come to be, and how did all of this start? Well, video games have been around for quite a long time. I think it was 1958 that like the first iteration of, I think it was like a Pong type video game was around. And almost instantly, like there was competition. In the 80s, there was a TV show called Starcade where they actually had a TV show. As far as I know, I think that's like the first like major broadcasted event for what you'd call esports. 1989, The Wizard came out. I think that movie was fully or mostly paid for by Nintendo. The whole thing was a giant product push for the Power Glove. Not that cool of a product. I guess it was ahead of its time at that moment, but the plot of the movie is a kid traveling to go compete in a competition. So that was 1989. Big issue with all of this stuff was that there was no internet or high-speed internet. No internet in the 80s and no high-speed internet in the early 90s. So you had in-person competitions. You'd always have competitions at arcades. But what we know is esports today wasn't ever really able to be created without high-speed internet. So in the late 90s, some people say kind of spurred by the Asian financial crisis, in which they really doubled Asian nations doubled down and really built high-speed internet infrastructure in a response to that crisis. That was kind of where we saw what is today esports. It happened because now you could actually compete online. Before that was not possible. Everything had to be in person. So with high-speed internet, online competitions, and the birth of esports as we know it today. So where are we today? We went from, well, back then we went from these like kind of small events, people lining up at the arcade, maybe some events here or there. This is the Rainbow Six Siege Invitational in 2020. This was at a hockey arena in Montreal. I don't know how many people were actually there, but it was huge. It was for a $3 million prize pool. And there are even events that are bigger than this. Madison Square Garden sold out. A lot of interest in this stuff. It's gotten very big. It's very cool. So a lot of questions that I get, and I get this from people not in the industry very frequently, is, well, how do people like watching other people play video games? That seems silly. Well, the answer to that is basically the same reason why people like to watch other people play sports. It's entertaining, and most of the times people are doing stuff that they themselves can't do. So let's take Counter-Strike, for example. I think there's 20 million people that play Counter-Strike on a monthly basis, maybe more than that now. That's a lot of people that have a hobby that they're very interested in. So these people who this is like this is their hobby. This is what they do for fun. They, of course, consume content around it. They go to Google and they say, how do I become a better Counter-Strike player? They watch other people play so that they can get better. They watch other people play just because it's fun. Just like if you play basketball, you watch other people play basketball. You may watch high school games, you may watch college games, but it's kind of the same. So you've kind of got this whole community, and you can break it down probably like any other category. You've got your 1% of super hardcore people. You've got another 19% of people that are enthusiasts. You have another 80% that are just like play once or twice and don't really care about anything other than just playing on occasion. A big bulk of the esports crowd is that enthusiast crowd. Like they take it, it's like more of a legitimate hobby for them. You know, they spend several hours a week in it. But these people, they're interested in it, right? You're playing Counter-Strike. You want to climb the public leaderboards. You start interacting with other people on social media, right? Because they've got the same name in the game as they do on social media. So now these two people that never knew each other, they played each other a bunch in the game. This is a very simplistic breakdown, by the way. It's not exactly like this, but you get the gist. You know, they play each other in the game, and then now they're friends on Twitter. Now they're bantering on Twitter, and so you kind of build this whole community around it. They're talking on Reddit. They're posting videos on YouTube. They're doing all these things, and they banter. And then there's status. You actually have like clout in this deal, where the higher you climb, you can actually achieve social clout because other people recognize you as really good at this game. And when enough people do that, now you're actually kind of an influencer. Now you're like this little miniature celebrity inside of this ecosystem. Again, this is all very simple, but you get the idea. So the highest level players, the very, very tippity tip top, these people are capable of becoming professionals. And the professionals within these communities. Okay, let's back up. So you've got this 20 million people, okay? 20 million people that actively play this game. There's 150 of them that are so much better than everyone else. They're professional. Maybe it's not 150. It might be more than that. It's like probably 250, whatever. 250 out of 2 million, 20 million is crazy. And so these people are very sought after from that group of 20 million. People want to see how they play so they can play better. They want to know what their lifestyle is like as a gamer, so they follow these people. The drama, man, the teammates, teammates break up and there's gossip and all this stuff. People posting on Reddit, it's very interesting. Trade rumors, one team wants to trade someone else to here. All of this stuff, it's very fascinating. This is like how and why there's people that pay attention to these things. All of these factors, this is what leads to people wanting to consume this stuff and consume the competition of these games, and poof, now we've got esports, right? We've got a lot of people that want to see these people play. A large majority of the base that watch people play are, of course, enthusiasts in the game themselves, so they know what's going on and all of that stuff. And it creates a community and it creates an ecosystem. So fundamentals of esports. Esports are like F1. My friend Justin Siegel, one of the co-founders of NRG, actually told me this on his podcast, so credit goes to Justin here. But it's a very good analogy. Esports function as a marketing tool for the game it's for. So let's go back to League. Let's go to League of Legends. League of Legends has this whole sophisticated league. They sell these franchise spots for like $20 million, whatever it is. It's crazy. And this whole competition, the only reason that this competition can or really should exist is if all of that drama, all of those trade rumors, all of the interest that is community driven circles back and drives broader interest in the game. The game publishers make money from selling copies of the game and or selling in-game items and selling things around the game. And so if esports doesn't actually drive broader interest in the game, they're probably not going to last for long, or at least they're not going to operate in any type of like profitable method. And I don't mean profitable for esports in a vacuum, but for the wider game as a whole. There are exceptions to this. It does appear that some developers prop up their ecosystems at a loss. That's a topic for a different discussion. Oh, but to tie this back to F1, it's like Ferrari or Mercedes. Mercedes F1 team. They probably spend $500 million a year on their F1 team. Highly doubt they make a profit on that. However, it's a fantastic marketing tool for their cars as a whole. Every time you buy a Mercedes, you're getting like the 5-time Formula One champion car. Not exactly that, but I think that's how they justify it. The same can be said for esports. So most esports today are built from a strong player community first. The game usually exists for a long time before there's these like formalized esports for it. Overwatch is a little bit of an exception to that. It was one of the first to not really have that like strong player base. The game basically came out, and within a year they had like a franchise league and a full system. The verdict is still out on how successful that will be. Time will tell. Let's check back in 5 years or something. Cool graphic of kind of the esports ecosystem. Thanks to Nielsen for this graphic. But this kind of summarizes like all the moving pieces. So you've got your teams. Disrupt Gaming. Disrupt Gaming has players. Some of these people and additional people are streamers. Another word for that is content creators. They interact directly with the community through broadcast platforms and just generally social media platforms. So Twitch being where they actually stream their gameplay, but they interact on Twitter, on Reddit, on Instagram, blah, blah, blah. Esports teams like Disrupt Gaming, we compete in professional esports leagues. We compete in Rainbow Six. Other teams compete in different games like League of Legends, Counter-Strike, blah, blah, blah. And these events, these tournaments, sometimes they're managed by the publisher themselves, but frequently it's a third party. So a third party will actually host a league, host the events, they'll secure the sponsorship and do all of these things, and run it for the publisher, since the publisher is a game developer, not necessarily a production studio. For like live events and stuff like that. The game publisher, so real quick. Sometimes the publishers do it, but not all the time. As you can see on the chart, the game publishers actually own the game, of course. So Riot owns League of Legends. I'll talk about that more in a little bit. Yeah, most of it's broadcast on Twitch. Some other ones are Mixer, YouTube, all of that stuff. So that's kind of a quick layout of the ecosystem. So lots of money floating around, a lot more than there was a few years ago. So how does this all come about, and what is the source of all of this? Well, just generally speaking, wherever there's a ton of interest in stuff, there's usually like money to be made and circulated around. So you're having these player bases grow. Like I said earlier, these player bases consume lots of content. They watch, they're very interested, they're very engaged. And so the player base and the audience growth, people that watch, that's going to drive more revenue for the publishers because they're making more sales from and inside their games. The people that are actually running these events and the people that want to broadcast these events are going to pay more money because they know more people are going to watch. There's going to be more merchandise, ticket sales, more advertising and sponsorship, all that stuff that happens the more people watch. So if you don't take anything else out from this, just know that more people are playing, more people are watching, and that's generally good for anyone in the industry. It is growing. It is growing very, very fast. It's growing much faster than your regular sports are. A lot of it has to do with ubiquity. Almost everybody plays some type of game. The ease of access. So PCs are kind of big and not super accessible, but consoles are super accessible. Mobile is really growing fast. Relatability. Pro gamers tend to look like me, or probably like you. They're usually not 7 feet tall and can like jump 500 feet or whatever. And so it's very relatable. And then look, a huge part of the popularity, I touched on this earlier, similar to regular sports, is the stories. Look, the drama, all of that stuff, you don't have to understand why people watch. You just have to know that people love drama. They love stories. It's a fundamental thing of human nature. It's why there's a reality TV show for like every topic. you know, there's a reality show on the garbage guys. There's a reality show on, you know, the people in the swamp. There's a reality show on like random families all over the world. Like, it's just, people love this stuff. My wife, she doesn't have enough drama in her own life, so she has to watch other people's drama on TV. It's crazy. Same thing. People love this stuff. I'm telling you. You go to an event, one of the players, you know, his girlfriend breaks up with him. Then she goes and dates another guy in the scene, and it's all this huge thing on Twitter. This stuff happens all the time. People eat it up. It's hilarious. It's awesome. It's all the stories, but it's part of why it's so popular, similar to every other sport. So this is kind of dense. It's just a quick rundown of the games and the categories. So I'm not going to talk about all of these, but your MOBAs are going to be your 5v5, League of Legends, Dota, the two big ones. Very, very popular, very, very strategic. You got 5 people clashing on the map. And it's like tower defense in essence, but in essence, you've got 5 guys trying to push other 5 back towards the back of their end while taking down towers along the way. Pretty fun. You've got your let's go back. You've got your first-person shooters, Counter-Strike, Rainbow Six, Valorant is the new game by Riot coming out, Call of Duty. You probably know what these look like. You've got the little gun and you shoot people. They all have different objectives and are modified from each other, but those are generally first-person shooters. You've got your real-time strategy games. StarCraft is by far the most popular. If you're familiar with Command and Conquer, it's like those back in the day. But this is consider these digital chess, if you will. Very complex games with lots of moving pieces and like super... Like the people that are really good at those games are extremely smart. MMOs, not really too much esports going on in MMOs. I mean, there is a little bit, but basically World of Warcraft is your most well-known MMO. You've got a little character and you build them up over time and you interact with the community, you do quests, and there's no real like end to the game. It's just kind of like a virtual world that you participate in. You've got your sports games. FIFA, Madden, NBA 2K. I put Rocket League down here like in yellow because Rocket League's kind of unique in the sense that it's based on a sport, but it's not actually a sport. Rocket League is soccer with cars. It's super popular, super fun, super brand friendly. Very cool game. Big esports scene that's growing. You've got your card games. Yes, digital card games. Very similar to Magic the Gathering. You've got your battle royales, Fortnite. These are basically games that are like the Hunger Games. Not really, kind of, I guess, but it's like the Hunger Games. You drop into a map, every man for himself, or sometimes there's teams, but you just play on a huge map, and it starts with 100 people, and you shrink down to the winner. You've got a lot of different mobile games. Almost all of these games have a mobile version. Mobile gaming's growing very, very fast. Everybody's got a mobile phone, so it makes sense. And the esports scene for them are growing as well. You've got $1 million prize pools in mobile. And finally, your fighting games, Street Fighter, Tekken, 1v1, 2 dudes fighting. Pretty straightforward. I think that's mostly it. There might be a few other things that I forgot, but this is a pretty good start for sure. Okay, IP. Who owns all of these games? Like, who are the major players in here? Ubisoft, Riot, Activision Blizzard, Bandai Namco, Epic Games, Valve, EA Sports, 2K Interactive, Capcom, Nintendo. There's more. There's quite a few of them, but there's not like 100 of them, especially when it comes to esports. There's like a handful. I'd say there's like 10 publishers, maybe. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's 10 right there. So maybe like 15 publishers probably total that handle 95% of all your major esports. There's exceptions. I'm sure I left one off. But this is a pretty good breakdown of the games and who owns them. So, what are the opportunities in this ecosystem? I've dedicated my career to this. I've been in this business for 5 years now, or about 5 years. It's really cool. I'm really passionate about it. I love it. My life and work blend together pretty seamlessly. It's nice to have something that you enjoy anyway, be for work. But I think the way I kind of look at the ecosystem and where there's opportunities, you can create some kind of platform. I actually had a brief, my other company is called Origin GG. It's a SaaS platform. I don't really do anything with it anymore. I focus 99.999% on Disrupt. But services for esports teams. So team analytics. When you run a team, you've got to do all this reporting. You've got to track all these metrics. You've got to do sponsorship obligations. You got 30 people. You got to wrangle up. So somebody's going to create some type of analytics and or coordination tool that will really tie things together. Another one is like sponsorship evaluations. How does a brand know what they're getting out of all this like digital stuff? Same way you'd have to evaluate if you were putting your sign in a stadium or something. Some examples: Discord. Discord is in essence voice communication for games. Has a lot of similarities with Slack, but very specific to gaming. Quest Mode. Quest Mode is a SaaS platform that helps people manage their stream teams, quantifying all of their metrics and all of that stuff and aggregating, so you don't have to go one by one. And GumGum does the actual evaluations of sponsorship. So, for example, if you've got your logo on a jersey and the guy was on stage in front of 100,000 people watching, what is the value of that sponsorship? GumGum would probably tell you what that is. There's opportunity to be like an organizer or on the production side of all of these esports events, right? So running the leagues, putting on the live events. Those are very logistic heavy and operational intensive things. So like there's always a need there. Usually the publisher doesn't want to do that in-house. Sometimes they do. There are exceptions. Maybe once they get really mature, they can do that. But generally, if you're a game publisher, you want to, make your game as cool as possible, but you don't necessarily want to, be hauling equipment to, camera equipment to a live studio or whatever. Some examples, ESL, Faceit, and StarLadder are some big ones. You can look those up. You could also be a game developer. Game developers have a lot of power in this industry. You own the IP. Activision Blizzard owns the Overwatch League. They own Call of Duty League and the game. So like, if you knock a game out of the park, like Fortnite, that can be very, very lucrative. But the downside here is, one, it's relatively capital intensive, and you have no way to really test the market without investing first. Like, you could probably bootstrap some like small iteration of your game to get it out to test, but you're not going to get distribution on it for cheap. So like, it's going to be tough. Like, I'm not saying that it's impossible, but it's just really, it costs a lot of money, and you don't know if people are going to like your game, and there's no way to really find out until you build something. It's part art, part science. Lots of people are good at creating games. Scares me a little bit. Anyway, you could have an esports team. That's what I do. A lot of people look at an esports team and they say that the constant changing of what games are popular and those things, that's risky. I actually see that as not risky. We are game agnostic. We pick and choose our games based on a number of factors. However, we're not like necessarily attached to one indefinitely. If a game becomes unpopular, guess what? We won't be in it anymore. We'll go create content in a new game. There's stories and there's people interested in all sorts of games. So we're never too worried about one game like going away or becoming unpopular. We'll just move with the tide. Another really strong benefit is we don't have like fixed costs. I guess we've got contracts and players and all of that stuff. But like I said about the games, like we can expand and contract a lot easier than say any other type of business that has underlying costs. We're distributed. We don't have these huge office costs. It's a pretty flexible business. So I love it. That's why I'm in it, or these are parts of the reason why I'm in it. There are some downsides, of course, like one being there's a low barrier to entry, right? Like a 15-year-old kid with a Twitter account, starts up his Twitter and boom, he's got an esports team. So the barrier to entry is low. You've really got to kind of build case study with how well you work with brands and storytelling and all of that stuff and building up on your channels. But you know, low barrier to entry. Ultimately, I see room for about 100 big esports brands, probably about like what is in the pro sports ecosystem in the world, maybe a little bit more. The world's big, lots of people. So there might be more than room for 100, but there's not 100 big brands yet. So lots of room for growth. Teams are actually like really valuable to these publishers. Look, you know, the fact of the matter is that if you've got a game and you've got distribution channels and you just want to pay for all of those, more power to you. However, when you have an esports scene, teams come in and they actually market for you. We are in Rainbow Six and we create tons of Rainbow Six content. We've been doing that for years now, and it probably really helps Ubisoft a lot. It's like free marketing for them. So teams are an important piece. That's why you're starting to see kind of publishers starting to take care of their teams pretty well. Ubisoft does a great job of that, by the way. We love Ubisoft. Anyway, and finally, like the opportunity for brands. The 18 to 24-year-old demographic, they're just, where are you going to reach them? You know, what are you going to do? Run TV commercials? Radio ads? Esports is really, really popular. It's growing. It's where people are. So pretty much like every like big brand needs to be in esports probably, just because that's where like the attention is. But I'll use Bank of America as an example here. I don't know what their average customer value is. I know I opened up most of my bank accounts at Bank of America when I was very young, have all of them there now. So like if you're Bank of America, why aren't you in esports and like encouraging those people to open their checking account when they're 17 years old with you? Those people probably stick for like 40 years, you know, the lifetime value is like 50 grand. I don't know what it is. It's maybe 10 grand. It's a lot. It's all that matters. So you don't need to convert a ton of people for it to be like really, really worth your time. Other really good fits, anything in finance, mortgages, insurance, these are all no-brainers for the space. Entry-level auto makes a ton of sense, right? If you're 18, you're 4 or 5 years away from buying a car or whatever, you know, you got to start making those impressions, and Toyota, Nissan, Kia, blah, 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 Ford, all these people, entry-level, if you're trying to get impressions on entry-level vehicle purchases, it's a great spot. Snacks makes a ton of sense, obviously. Gamers like to eat snacks. Drink companies, energy drinks, Red Bull, Monster, they're already in, but really any drink company makes a lot of sense. And finally, food, your fast casual restaurants. Chipotle's done some cool stuff. Chipotle, Jersey Mike's, these are all just, this is who you want to be targeting. Like, it's just a complete no-brainer. All right. If you have made it through this video, I appreciate your time thus far. Don't hesitate to reach me with any questions. You can reach me at any of these handles. Look, on Twitter, looks like caShflo, but the L is really an I. Don't get me started on that. I want the handle. Haven't been able to get it yet. I'll get it one day. Don't worry. But Instagram, LinkedIn, email, I'll put all this in the description of the video. And yeah, if you guys have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach me. I don't mind making videos like this. If you have any particular topics you really want me to dive into, don't hesitate to reach out. And yeah, appreciate it. Thanks.